Hello everyone! Thank you for visiting our channel. Have you ever experienced such like stories? Emily and James met entirely by chance when they and their friends were spending time at the ice rink. Emily rented skates, put them on, and began to tie them up, but she lacked the strength to tighten the laces properly. By that time, her friends had already gone onto the ice, and James came to her aid. He asked her so tenderly how she was feeling, and whether he was tightening her skates too tightly that she melted. That day they separated from their companies and skated together. From that moment on, they never let go of each other's hands. They had been married for 5 years. At some point, all the magic of their feelings and constant desire to be together 24/7 disappeared. It was replaced by routine and joint decisions. Love subsided, rose-colored glasses fell off, and the spouses began to pay attention to each other's imperfections. After a series of arguments over completely different reasons, there was a lull. Sometimes it bordered on indifference. James knew about his wife's stubborn character, so he understood that in these conflicts and other unpleasant situations, he would be the one to make peace. It didn't bother him. He had an opposite character to his wife's. Moreover, he understood that if they didn't solve these small problems, they would accumulate over time and destroy their family. Therefore, he tried his best to restore their relationship with Emily. The husband really wanted to have children. He had a stable job, a good salary, and his own home, which he inherited from relatives and where he and his wife lived. Emily also worked, but even if they lost this source of income, it wouldn't change much globally. James understood that he could cope well on his own. In short, all opportunities were there, but Emily wasn't particularly eager to become a mother. At first, she said she needed to live for herself. Then she repeated that pregnancy and taking care of a baby were very energy-consuming, and she wasn't ready for such changes yet. The husband patiently waited for Emily to feel ready to have children on her own. He constantly showed through his actions that he would be a great father and provider. He assured her that they would be fine together. But none of this helped, and the atmosphere at home was not improving. At some point, Emily started staying at work more and more often. James missed the moment when it all began. He only realized it when he came home and had to reheat yesterday's dinner or order pre-made food. Emily justified herself by saying that they had many new clients at work, and there was catastrophically not enough time. While you figure everything out and make agreements with everyone, time flies by unnoticed, and it's already 8 o'clock. James was not very happy with this situation, but he couldn't do much about it. His wife really liked her job. She loved her company. Because of these constant overtimes, his wife began to refuse intimacy more and more often, citing fatigue. Her husband understood that at this pace, the question of having children could be delayed for an indecently long time. So he even began to suggest that Emily leave work and rest at home. But she replied that everything was fine with her, and she didn't need that kind of rest yet. This inconsistency caused James constant confusion. After several months of this lifestyle, everything ended. The wife's constant delays at work stopped, and she began to come home on time. But her mood became even worse. She was gloomy, nervous, and not very talkative. When her husband asked if everything was okay with her, she lashed out at him. Although James tried to improve their relationship, constantly tried to please his beloved, it already exceeded reasonable limits. Relationships should not be a one-way street. Once they went to a housewarming party with their mutual friends. They lived on the other side of town, and for some reason, Emily noticeably nervously when they drove through that area with James. When they parked the car and got out, the wife nervously looked around, and then something happened that was completely inexplicable. At least, that's what James thought at the time. As they walked past the entrances in search of the one they needed, some woman ran up to Emily. She immediately started showering her with insults and even tried to grab her by the hair. But James intervened in time, thinking that it was some local crazy person. The woman's eyes really were insane at that moment. "Don't you dare defend that slut. She's tearing families apart. I have 2 kids. What were you thinking?" The stranger continued to shout. James asked the woman to leave them alone, took Emily by the hand, and led her to the right entrance. "Are you okay?" "What was that all about?" the husband asked. "Spring exacerbation, you know. How many unexamined cases there are, the wife muttered. She pretended not to understand what had just happened. But it was a lie. At the friend's housewarming party, the couple was distracted from this unpleasant situation. It was only later, when they were home, that James realized that the situation still bothered him. What the woman had shouted, that Emily was a family destroyer. But an ordinary woman wouldn't shout such specific accusations at a stranger. He tried to find out from Emily if she knew what it was all about, but their conversations led nowhere. He only noticed that Emily was trying not to look him in the eye when she answered, and she was tense at that moment. The man decided to dig deeper. Maybe it wouldn't give him any clues, but being sure that nothing was being hidden from him was also a result. He checked his wife's phone, her home computer, but it was all in vain. Until the day when the incident itself solved everything for him. One evening, Emily wrote to her husband, asking him to stop by the store and buy groceries. James had just left work and decided to stop by the nearest supermarket. He was standing near a shelf with various cereals and grains when he suddenly noticed a woman. With one hand, she held her daughter so that she wouldn't run away with the shopping cart, and with the other hand, she rocked the stroller with her still tiny baby. At the same time, she was looking for the product she needed. It was evident that she was struggling to manage everything on her own. On top of that, her older child kept asking when they were going to see their dad. James realized that he had seen this woman before. It was the same woman who had approached Emily and insulted her. But now she appeared before him in a different light. There was no hint of any irrational behavior in her. She was just a tired mom. At that moment, her little girl managed to break free and ran up to James, trying to start a game with him. The woman looked in his direction and was stunned. She remembered him too. "Little girl, don't bother the man." "I'm sorry," she said. James understood that this was his chance. He joked about the situation with the little girl that had just happened and then steered the conversation to the topic that interested him. He introduced himself and asked about the strange incident in the yard. As soon as the woman, whose name was Sarah, found out that James was Emily's husband, she turned pale. "Don't you know anything, really?" she whispered. "What should I know?" James asked sternly, and then Sarah told him about her recent misfortune. The thing was, she caught her husband John cheating on her and then found out about his mistress through the photos on his phone. "Your wife's name is Emily, and she works in the office on Main Street. Can you confirm that?" Sarah asked. "Yes," James replied cautiously, remembering his wife's strange delays at work and how her mood had changed. "But are you sure you're not mistaken?" he continued. "If you don't believe me, you can look through your wife's laundry." Sarah replied matter-of-factly. "I found blue lace panties in his car, and I didn't return them to their owner, if you catch my drift." "I don't understand," James said, still in shock from her words. "Check the completeness of the set. The blue bra should have stayed with her, but there was a problem with the panties." "Sadly," she said with a sad smile. James still didn't fully comprehend what had just happened. As a precaution, he exchanged phone numbers with Sarah, thanked her, and headed home. At first, when he entered the apartment, he went to the chest of drawers where his wife kept her lingerie. He remembered that Emily really had a blue set. When everything was still good between them, she often teased her husband by wearing this beautiful lingerie. The bra was found, but the bottom was nowhere to be seen. "What are you doing, James?" The surprised wife entered the bedroom. "Just looking for something." "Where are your blue lace panties?" the husband asked. Emily was stunned. "Why do you suddenly need them?" she replied with a question. "I wonder if John has them or if they're still here," the man teased. For a moment, fear flashed in Emily's eyes, but then she pretended that her husband was talking nonsense. At that moment, he received a message on his phone from Sarah. "If you still don't believe me, here are more photos," she wrote. And then she sent him pictures of his Emily with another man. They hugged, and it was clear that they had a connection between them. The husband turned the phone screen to Emily. She couldn't deny it anymore. James kicked her out that same evening. The apartment belonged to him. He didn't want to tolerate such careless behavior from his unfaithful wife any longer. Emily tried to say something in her defense, but the man didn't want to listen. He soon filed for divorce. Later, he found out that after Sarah caught her husband cheating, she had a huge scandal that even led the man to break up with Emily in the heat of the moment. Everything added up. That was when she stopped staying late at work, and her mood became completely spoiled. James was upset that he had spent so much time on a woman who had such a careless attitude towards him and his love. Fortunately, he didn't become bitter, and soon found a woman who became an exemplary wife and gave him the long-awaited child. And Emily now lived alone. She had a lot of problems to deal with, from household to personal and work-related issues. Fate showed her in all colors what happens when you ruin other people's lives for your fleeting desires. What do you think about this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. And thank you for listening to the story until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and be sure to like this video, as it will help us promote the channel. All the best.